This is Nick Mason, the Living Dead drummer, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast.
Brutally Delicious!
I know you work on quite a lot of stuff. What are you up to right now?
Actually, today, I got two different cool things today. One of the bands that I work with, the Rhythm Coffin, which is described as a monster rock and roll band. They're kind of Kiss meets the B-52s meets the Ramones meets Scooby-Doo.
Really?
Yeah,
it's quite interesting.
It is. I mean, there's no other real way to describe it. It's old school rock and roll. It's very, very Ramones kind of stripped down progressions and stuff like that. But it's got the same kind of dynamics as like the B-52s do, where it's like, two female singers and a male singer.
Right.
And then everybody's in costumes and makeup, and there's a whole theatrical production going on stage like Kiss. You know what I mean? So it's the only way I could figure it out. And then the Scooby-Doo element comes in because every song is about like werewolves and zombies and monsters.
Nice.
Yeah. So today it's Friday the 13th, and we just dropped a single. It hit every major streaming platform at midnight, and it's a cover of the Monster Mash. And
nice.
It features, we close out every show playing the Monster Mash. It's like it's the only cover song we've ever done. The band's been around for like 15 years, and at least for the last 10, this is the closer every night. No matter what, they end the show playing Monster Mash, and they play it very true to the original version. It's not super up-tempo like all the rest of the songs are. And so we decided to actually just license it for our new record, and we did two versions. One version is just the band playing it the way we normally play it live, and then we did a second version that features guest vocals from Davey Suicide and Calico Cooper from Beasto Blanco. And so that version with the guest vocals just dropped at midnight, and that's available worldwide right now.
Nice. Where can people find it?
Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Google Play, SoundCloud, pretty much anywhere you get your music from, Target. I don't know. Like it's the laundry list of platforms it's on is like 3 pages long.
Cool.
But if you just look up the Rhythm Coffin and the Monster Mash, it should pop right up.
I'm gonna check that out right away.
Yeah, so that just came out today, which is awesome. We sat on it for such a long time. Like the idea came about, 8 months ago, where we're like, let's just license the song and cover it for the new record. Like, why not? And then it was all
what the hell?
What if we called some favors in on this one too?
Nice.
Yeah. So it's the first single on the new EP, which it's a 6-song EP that will come out October 1st, and that's called Monster on My Back, and it's got a few new original songs on there, and then both versions of the Monster Mash kind of bookending it. The special guest version opens the CD, and then our version of it, the regular version, will close it out, and then stacked in the middle is a bunch of brand new songs.
Nice. Do you find it difficult playing in a theatrical setting like that? With all the costumes and props and things.
No, you know what? I love it. I kind of miss all of that in rock and roll. Like when I teach my students this all the time, is that people don't go to a concert to listen to music. They just don't. They go to watch a show. People listen with their eyeballs. If they're not going to watch a show, then they're going to stay at home with iTunes or well, not iTunes anymore, but Spotify, whatever the most updated thing is. I've been saying that so long, it literally went home from stay at home with radio to, progressing through the decades of like stay at home with, with your Zoom.
Yeah.
But,
man, my iPad's so old, it sounds analog.
Right, exactly. But the point is the same, is that people go out to watch a show, and if you're not entertaining them and giving them something to watch, you're failing at your job and you don't deserve to be on stage. So I'm all about it. Bring the makeup, bring the lights, bring the with the Rhythm Coffin, we have we have a crew that comes out and actually comes on stage and does different routines while we play, kind of like an Alice Cooper show. We have fire, we have confetti cannons, we have a song called the Headless Head Bop where we literally are throwing styrofoam heads into the audience and encouraging people to throw them around. And it looks, dude, from the stage, it looks like you're looking at a popcorn maker out in the crowd, because it's awesome. Just decorated styrofoam heads bouncing around. We tell people throw them at us. We have a song called Gruesome's Cockroach Coffee, and it's like this super fast, like 2-minute play as fast as you fucking can song, and we have 2 giant, like 6-foot inflatable cockroaches that get tossed into the audience.
Nice.
And they go crowd surfing. You know what I mean? And then, of course we have our guests coming on. We have a song called Famous Monster, and one of our guys comes out in like a suit and top hat and a Creature from the Black Lagoon mask, and he does the whole kind of like prancing around the stage with the top and tails kind of thing, and it's awesome. I mean, bring it. The more the merrier. I can't get enough of that stuff. I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. And then, I grew up on Kiss and Alice Cooper and that whole theatrical sort of thing. I'm dating myself, but I really do appreciate the full package rather than, just some dude staring at his feet playing the guitar.
Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. When I kind of matured and came into my own was the early 90s, so the stripped down thing, Nirvana, the grunge movement, that was what sucked me into music in the first place.
Yeah.
But, and I love that. I have a very, very passionate, opinion that the 90s were the best decade for music, top to bottom. But you got, nothing's going to beat an Alice Cooper show or a Kiss show or a Rob Zombie show or anything like that. Like, you're not going to beat it. You're absolutely not. One of the greatest live shows I've ever seen in my life was Rammstein, and it was just because they literally lit everything on fire for an hour and a half and then just peaced out and just left the audience stunned of like, what just happened to me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I like that.
I agree. I grew up in I don't know, I'm 43 now, but I grew up in the 90s like you did. And I agree, such an amazing thing. But I remember in the 80s, like when I was in junior high or whatever, I was going to see Motley Crue, Girls, And Tommy Lee is coming out over the audience in this spinning drum set, and there's fire everywhere. And it was just mesmerizing to see something.
Yeah, man. I mean, drum solos suck unless you're doing something like that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I'm a drummer, and I'm telling you, I think drum solos are boring. I think they suck. I see someone doing a drum solo, I'm like, I'm going to go get a beer.
Yeah.
But if you're Tommy Lee and you're swinging from the rafters or you're doing something that is a little more inclusive, like when Godsmack does it and Sully rolls out on a drum kit and they do a drum battle.
That's really cool.
You know what I mean? And what people don't realize is that the guitar player and the bass player just step off to the side during that solo, but they continue to play. So it's not really a drum solo because there's still rhythm going on. There's still guitar and bass going on underneath it. Just, the spectacle of having 2 drummers go head to head overshadows it with your eyeballs. So again, it's giving you something to latch on to visually. So unless you're going to step up your game and do something really badass like that, drum solos suck. You know,
I also like what Metallica did on the last tour, where they came out with the big taiko drums, and they just.
I didn't see that.
Oh, you got to check it out.
I didn't get to see Metallica the last round. Yeah, when they came to LA, I was everybody I knew in the world was at the show except me. I did see them when they played Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh yeah.
I got to see that, and I very quickly realized that I am too old to be in the front row at a Metallica concert. Because like, oh yeah, it was cool until they started playing, and then I was like, oh my god, what the hell?
I'm gonna get injured here.
I'm like pinned against the guardrail trying to protect some old lady from 12 dudes who are just slam dancing behind us, and I'm like, oh shit, this was cool when I was 23, but right now I'm like fearing for my safety.
It's amazing how that all changes, right?
Oh yeah, it was, and I was so pumped for it too, because every time I've seen Metallica, I've been fortunate enough to be like right in the pit in the front row, and I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. And it's smaller, it's private. They're going to play, 2 songs to tape on TV, and then they're going to play for another 30 minutes of their greatest hits. It's going to be sweet. And I was like, it was sweet until he started playing, and then I was more on like,
right.
Then I felt more like I was trying to be a bouncer, and then I was enjoying the concert.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, if you can go on YouTube and you can check it out. But they had these huge taiko drums that they roll out on stage. But they had they had electronic pads in them, and the whole band gets in on this drum solo. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. So I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, check it out. It's pretty cool.
I really need to check that out immediately. I'm going to watch that this morning while I'm eating breakfast. I'm going to look that up. That's so cool.
Nice, yeah. Now I have another question for you here. I'm just looking at
sure.
your Facebook under your biography, and there's so many credits to your name, but there's a few that stick out to me. TUFF. How did you end up with that band?
I love those guys. They're awesome. So they're one of their longtime drummers was a longtime friend of mine.
Okay.
And he called me up and just needed a sub for a couple of shows, kind of thing. They were doing a handful of dates over the course of a week on the West Coast, and he had a conflict because I think he was teching for Def Leppard at the time. So he was on the road as Def Leppard's drum tech and couldn't do these couple of shows that they were going to do. So he called me up and asked if I wanted to sub for it. And so I did it that way. So I just subbed for a few dates, and then I had a scheduling conflict, so I only committed to like the first half of the dates. But after we did those dates, they called me back up and were like, you want to do a couple more? And then and then we kind of stayed in touch after that, and they called me back up again, a little while later, like, hey, we're doing some stuff on the East Coast. Do you want to fly out?
Yeah.
So it became one of those things where just every so often they'll call up and say, hey, we're doing like, a weekend of stuff in this area, or we're doing 4 or 5 shows spread out over a week over here, and they'll just call up every once in a while and throw a couple things at me like, so what's your calendar looking like right now?
Nice. I didn't even know they were still playing. That's why I asked.
I haven't talked to them in a little while, and I don't know how active they are at the moment. But yeah, for the last bunch of years, like, they'd go out maybe once a year and just do a couple of weekends doing some festivals, or headlining some larger, or small clubs, kind of like middle-sized club kind of things. They'll go out and do a handful of dates and then cap it off with a festival or something like that. Like when I played with them, we did a couple of radio show dates in Southern California, and then a crew fest thing. And then we did the same thing on the East Coast, where it was like, we played a couple of decent sized clubs headlining, and then played, third to last at a 2-day 80s hair metal festival in Wisconsin or something like that,
Yeah, right.
But those guys are super, super cool. A lot of the time with bands, I've found that like either had already kind of plateaued or had their success or achieved some level of success for a long period of time. They can kind of get egotistical and stuff like that. And the guys in TUFF are not that at all. Like they're going into this just, counting their blessings that people still want to buy a ticket to come see them.
That's right.
And they're really humble, and they know where they're at in their career, and there's no misconception about it. And they're fun. They joke about it. Like they know what's up,
Yeah.
And, it's cool because they would joke around on stage when we would play some of their older material. They're like, Nik was in kindergarten when this song hit MTV. And one night, and the thing is, one time I did the math on it and I was like, yeah, shit, I was in kindergarten when this song hit
That's
MTV.
Funny.
Now, the other artist that I see here is Shania Twain. So
that one got me.
Of all the three things, you're talking about the first band, which is like, totally theatrical and doing the Monster Mash. Then you go to 80s hair metal, and now you have Shania. How did that even happen? Like, there's nobody bigger than Shania besides Garth Brooks. So, like, how did you get on that gig?
That one was a long, long time ago. And what happened was, it was like her first big tour her last big tour before she kind of took a hiatus for a while.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what she had a section in her show built in that required extra percussion, and rather than hire a handful of guys to come out on the road to come do just one part of the show, and have it be really expensive and cost worthy, and renting extra bunks on the bus just so a couple guys can come out on stage for 10 minutes a night. She decided to just farm local talent in every stop along the tour.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I got a call saying Shania's looking for drummers and she's coming to town in 2 days or something like that. And I got put in touch with her record label, and then they set it up. So,
nice.
They kind of did like a quick audition where they took like 20 guys, and we had to learn the material real quick, and then the band kind of came in and just cherry picked and went, I want you, and I want you, and the rest of you guys go home. And then the next thing you do is you're on stage, doing sound check in an arena.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was cool. So I ended up doing that, which was kind of badass, and it was cool. And it was, I was young, and it was my first time stepping onto stage in front of 20,000 people, which was outstanding. And then she went on to win, I think, at the CMAs, she won like best live, show of the year or something like that. And the cool thing is, during all of the concert footage they showed of her when she was nominated, it was all footage from the show I did with her.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Cool. Yeah, it was great. And so that's where that kind of came in. I mean, it was a quick thing. It's not like I was on the road with her for a long time or anything like that. It was like one section of one part of the tour, but it was still cool, and it was still a really great experience of getting my feet wet in arena production.
Sure.
Which then kind of helped later in the career when I would get to do that a few more times,
Oh, absolutely.
Also very cool that you could do some other kind of music that it crossed over.
Oh yeah. I mean, I like variety, I get asked a lot by people like, wouldn't you like to just be in one band and have just one band? And I'm like, no, I like going and doing something different all the time. Actually, the last gig I did was a country gig. A week ago, a friend of mine called me and asked me to sub for him on a country gig. It was like the most ridiculous situation ever. Less than 24 hours notice, and doing 4 sets of country songs, like 60 something songs,
right,
with no prep time at all. And I told him, I'm like, I don't have time to even like make a playlist to listen to these songs, much less learn them before 5 o'clock tomorrow. So if your band is cool with me just kind of showing up and winging it, then yeah, I'll do the gig. And that's exactly what I did. And that's what I did. And there was like, out of these 60 some songs, they gave me the set list. Now I'm like, yeah, I've heard of 5 of these, and the rest of them, I have no idea what they are. I don't know how they sound. Nothing. So, luckily I had a good bass player, and just, he was able to kind of hold my hand through all the songs and give me all the changes and the stops and where the tempos were and stuff like that. And then I step out and I did, an entire night of country. And that was last week. And now tonight I'm doing a vaudeville themed show, playing, again, really theatrical stuff where I'm going to be in makeup and we're going to have burlesque dancers on stage and, it's like, and then the next one's going to be something different. And then the next one's something different. And it's, I like it that way. You know what I mean? I like being able to play metal on Thursday and then play the blues on Friday. It's great.
That's awesome. Okay, now go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I have a really geeky question. So I own a software company that makes drum virtual instruments. What is your favorite snare drum?
My favorite snare drum, it's kind of a coin toss. So there's like the coveted holy grail of snares, and that's like the Tama Bell Brass from the 80s.
That's a beautiful drum.
Everybody makes a version of it nowadays and stuff like that, which is cool. But that was the snare drum that was heard on every major rock record when I was growing up. It was, and it's instantly identifiable. It's the snare drum on all of 90s Metallica stuff. The Black Album, Load, Reload. It's the snare drum that Dave Grohl used on Nevermind. It was used, like every big rock record in the 90s. That was the snare drum that the producer would roll out.
Yeah, well, it was backline. They would just rent it.
Yeah, and I had a fly date out here in LA before I lived here one time.
Yeah.
And I went to the same backline company to get my gear, and they had 3 of them.
Oh my God.
You just knew one of those was used on all these records. And I was like, I'll take that.
And
put that one in the case. I'm taking that one. You know what I mean?
How heavy was it?
It weighs like 15 pounds. It's ridiculous. That's awesome. It's so good though. You can put any head on it. You can tune it any way you want, no matter what. It's going to sound great.
Yeah.
And especially in a studio, you can do so much with it and tweak it so many ways to make it sound like 1,000 different things. So that's probably one of my favorite snares. And then opposite that is like, the Black Beauty snare.
Yeah.
The Ludwig Black Beauty, which is, a much thinner version of the bell brass. So the bell brass is 3 millimeters thick and it's bronze. And then, a Black Beauty is 1 millimeter thick brass that is coated in black chrome. And that's another one that I have 2 versions of that snare. Neither one's an actual Ludwig one, but I have a Yamaha one that they custom made me.
Nice.
And it's cool because it's flat black and it's the only one in existence. And then I have another one that's got the black chrome on it that I got. And that's another one that can just do anything. I use it probably about 90% of the time on every recording and every live show I do, because no matter what head I put on it or how I tune it, I'm going to get the sound I want. If I need a big, deep, fat country sound, I put a thick head on it and drop tune it. If I need to play, a funk tune, I'll crank the head and put something thinner on it, and it'll do that, and then I'll sound like the Chili Peppers, or you know what I mean? Like, it can versatile. Do anything, no matter what. It can do anything, and so I use that more than anything else ever, and that's why I own two of them. It's because I'll bring two of them out on a gig, so if one goes down mid-show, my backup sounds exactly the same.
Right.
Awesome.
That's pretty perfect.
Okay, now this is my last. I'm such a tech geek. Sometimes I drive crazy.
I am
this
too.
way.
I'm super nerdy and super geeky, and I absolutely love talking about gear and stuff like that. However, unless your listeners are drummers, they're going to be like, dude, who the fuck cares about the snare drum? But
no, it interests me. I always ask drummers these questions because I want to know. Cool, and how do you feel about electronic kits now and virtual instruments, and how they're kind of transforming the way people are tracking music these days, especially drums?
I got a love-hate with it. So, electronic drum kits have come a long way. And the top tier ones that you can get right now are really, really fantastic, and you can do a lot with them. And I absolutely see their benefit. And I've done a bunch of records where pre-production was all done on like an expensive electronic kit, and we just MIDI sampled, some software that has actual audio samples of drums that I wanted to use.
Yeah.
And it sounds good. It sounds really, really good. But at the end of the day, nothing's going to beat the sound of an actual mic'd drum. And so that's always my preference. Now, with being a session drummer and playing live more than in the studio, I am always learning songs for somebody else. Everyone's always sending me their songs, and I'm just learning whatever it was that they already produced.
Yeah.
I'd say 75% of the time there's no drummer on those songs, and it's all programmed.
Yeah.
If you get a really good producer and they really know how to do this stuff, the programming sounds fantastic to the point where you almost can't even tell that it's not a drummer. But there's not everybody in the world is that precise with it. And I don't care what you say, a guitar player is not going to know how to properly program drums to make them feel and sound like a drummer played it, no matter what.
I have a theory, and I even started a blog about it called Think Like a Drummer. So because I was sick and tired of getting mixes from bands that were programmed by guitar players or singers.
Yeah.
They just sound so there's no pattern to anything. There's no rudiments. There's nothing.
A lot of the time what I've found, and this has become really very, very trendy in modern rock music the last handful of years, is they start changing up the kick pattern too often, and it almost never recycles back to just a groove.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, it's going to play this for a bar and a half, and then it's going to add this note, but then it's going to take it away there, and then it's going to add two more notes there. And then your kick pattern's all over the place. And it's because you got, a guitar player or a singer or somebody thinking that they're being creative. And it's like, no, if you just make a pattern out of it that recycles every bar or every 2 bars, and then you spread that out over 8 to 16 bars, oh my God, there's your kick pattern. And it doesn't have to progress and chop up and be something completely different on bar 16 than it was on bar 1.
Oh yeah.
You're destroying the actual groove by trying to be creative, because you're not really being creative. You're just making something different for the sake of making it different.
Absolutely.
And the other thing people don't realize is that drummers have 2 arms, and that's it. 2, unless you're Def Leppard. Then you only get 1.
Right.
Generally speaking, 2. And you can't program things that require 3 or 4 arms. And that happens a lot.
Snare, floor, tom, 2 cymbals, and a hi-hat at the same time. You don't like that?
Yeah, exactly. And it happens all the time because they're like, they want to beef up the sound. And then I'm like, yeah, it sounds cool, but you can't duplicate that live.
No, what's that going to look like?
Yeah, and I'm of the opinion that anything you put down, in the studio needs to be duplicated live. You want your listeners to watch the show hearing what they remember, not hearing your interpretation of what they remember. Right. Like, that's doing a disservice to your audience, is doing something different on stage than what you threw down in the studio and what they're hearing on the radio. Like, I don't want to go see a band and have them play some weird artistic version or a bastardized version because they can't actually pull it off.
Oh yeah, exactly.
When they're on stage. You know what I mean? Where you can get away with that sort of thing, I think, is with specific genres of music. When it comes to, electronic music, obviously it's in the name, it's electronic. In other aspects too, industrial bands and stuff like that, I'm going to go to a Nine Inch Nails show or something like that, or a band that's even more extreme like KMFDM. I'm going to go see them live, knowing full well that shit on the record wasn't real. It was programmed, but they are still going to duplicate it live through the use of, backing tracks and MIDI and samples and triggers and all kinds of stuff like that. But that's the nature of that kind of music. So I feel like you get a pass with that sort of thing. But if you're, playing in a regular rock band or a country band or whatever, I really am a fan of, like, a drummer went into the studio and actually hit a drum to produce the sound that I'm hearing on Spotify.
Oh, I agree with you. I own a drum software company. I make virtual instrument drum software, but as an engineer, I always prefer a live drummer. There's just something about that feel. And, you could try to recreate that, and you can get pretty damn close with software, but you also lose the drummer because, I always like to use this as an example. You could put 4 drummers in the same room and have them run a blind test and tell each of them to play 4 on the floor. And then you're going to have to choose which one played it the best. And let's just say they're all the best drummers in the world. They're all going to have a different 4 on the floor, every single one of them, even though it's the same beat.
Absolutely. There's nothing incorrect about what you just said. I 100% agree. And when you decide which one played it the best too, that's subjective. That's a matter of your personal opinion, because you could also stick 4 guys behind the board and be like, no, I liked A, and the other guys could be like, no, I like guy B. You know what I mean?
Sure,
absolutely.
And that's the thing too, is there's this striving for perfection thing. I think really at the end of the day, why so many people are using programmed drums and stuff is A, it's easy, anyone can do it. And B, it's this striving for perfection that everyone has. Everyone wants things a specific way. It's a control issue. They want control over the finished product, and by putting someone behind the driver's seat that's not you is relinquishing that control on a subliminal level. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult for people who are producing this music or any music to give up that control, because they want it their way. And if you hit the snare drum in a way that doesn't sound like what you have it in your head as, then you're going to get axed from the gig, and they're going to program it. And it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid.
I think it's more affordable too, for a lot of people.
Where we are. Well, yeah, that's the other thing too, is you don't got to pay a guy to come in and do it and then have that person do it a way that doesn't line up with the fictional version you have floating around in your head. You know what I mean?
And the studio time and the engineer and it's all like, like, I don't know what studio rates are like in LA, but here in DC, I can get a decent studio for about $1,000 US for a day. And then I have to pay, if I was a musician, I'd have to pay the engineer. So that's going to be another $300 to $500 for the day. And then, then you have the musician that you have to pay, and however many songs they're going to do, and how much they're going to charge per song. By the end of the day, maybe you go in and do 5 songs, you might be looking at, $4,000 or $5,000 for that day.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing too, is that no one has the budgets that they used to have. A lot of people now are just self-financing too.
Absolutely.
The majority of the work that I do is all like a dude scraping by at a day gig to then hire me to play his songs,
Yeah.
And so the budgets aren't what they used to. Time is money. And it's funny, I was listening to one of your guys' podcasts just yesterday, and you had a band on from overseas, and they were talking about their new record and how they actually, spent like a month in the studio kind of doing it old school.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, man, nobody gets to do that anymore. Like nowadays, when I'm hired to come in on a session, they want to layer as many songs on me as they can in a 6-hour block and try to have me crank out, 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 songs in one day.
Yeah.
And they want me to do it in 7 or 8 hours. And I'm like, that's not realistic. Like,
it's insane.
Are you kidding me?
I said that to those guys. I remember saying that to them. What? You spent that long in the studio? How the hell did you do that?
No one gets to do that. Yeah, no one ever gets to do that at all anymore. The Rhythm Coffin, the record that we have coming out with the Monster Mash on and everything, we did drums, guitar, bass, vocals on 5, and not just one vocal, like everybody in the band sings. So 5 people doing vocal tracks, myself included. We did 5 songs in one 12-hour day.
Yeah.
And then went back a second day to mix, went back a third day to add the guest vocals with Calico and Davey, and then I went back by myself with the engineer on a 4th day to mix just that song with their vocals. And so a total of 4 days in the studio, and the mixing days were only kind of half days, but we cranked out a top to bottom 6-song record in 4 days, realistically.
Wow.
Which is stupid. It should have taken us 4 months, not 4 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's how everybody wants it now. And that's the other thing too, is it puts so much pressure on the players and on the musicians. So when you do have a drummer coming in and you do have a guitar player and a bass player coming in, and you're not just doing it by yourself or programming it, that's a lot of pressure you're putting on somebody, expecting them to just crank all of these songs out, take after take after take after take. I mean, it's gotten to a point where I'll tell people, I'm like, look, you got 3 takes. I'll run the song top to bottom 3 times. You pull what you need from those 3 takes. I'm not doing any more than that because it's going to waste time or we're not going to get to the next song.
Yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, if I can't nail it in 3 takes, then I'm not doing my job right. So
there you go.
But it would be nice to be able to spend
like the
a day
drummer
on
of
the
my
song
dreams.
and be a little more creative.
Right.
So
that's awesome, Bruce.
Yeah.
If do you have any more technical questions, Chris?
No, sorry. I geek out.
No,
when
that's
I talk
fine.
To drummers, man. I just
I know we do this a lot, but so I just like to ask some questions at the end, just for get fans a chance to get to know you a little bit better. But if you were stranded on a deserted island and could take 3 records, say for the rest of your life, assuming you had like a solar powered player of some sort, what would they be?
Damn it. This is one of I hate desert island questions because I'm like, I don't know. All right. Know what I would.
We could skip that then. What was the first record you bought?
No, I'll give you an answer.
Okay.
I'll give you an answer. It's okay.
All right.
Just like I gotta like think. You said 3 records, 3 that I had to live with for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna say Aerosmith's first record. They're self-titled.
Mm-hmm.
The Black Album from Metallica.
Nice.
Yeah, and the third one, man, I don't know if I'd have an actual specific album, but I probably would take something from like ZZ Top.
Oh, cool.
Nice. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a good balance. The Metallica can get some energy out when I need it. Aerosmith's my favorite record, or it's my favorite band of all time. I don't know my favorite record, but my favorite band of all time. And their first record just, is perfect front to back. And
it set the tone for the rest of their career.
Yeah, and absolutely it did. And then I've always been a fan of ZZ Top because they made blues cool in an era when blues was very underground kind of thing. And they were big in the 80s with all the hair metal, but they weren't doing hair metal. They were doing Sharp Dressed Man. You know what I mean? Like they made the blues fun in that era, and I absolutely love the blues, and all decades of it kind of thing. But they were like the fun blues band. You know what I mean? So, I think that would be good to cleanse the palate every once in a while when I've had too much Metallica.
There you go. Well, that's all I've got, man. I appreciate you taking the time. Chris, you got anything else?
No, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you. I'm a geek and I love talking about stuff
turned
like
out nice.
Yeah.
Hello out there.
Yes, hello out there, everyone. I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. Together we host None But the Brave, a podcast dedicated to the music and career of Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce and E Street Band are on tour right now for the first time in 6 years, and we're taking a detailed look at what's happening on stage in our bi-weekly episodes.
We've also been recently joined by some very exciting guests, including rock journalist Warren Zanes and Stephen Hayden, Backstreet's Magazine founder Charles Cross, and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
If you're a diehard Springsteen fan, this is the show for you.
So please subscribe to None But the Brave on your favorite podcasting platform, and we hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.